Next point. Well, let me just ask you a yes or no question, and maybe the answer will be I don't know. Was there an original Adam and Eve, man and woman, or were there groups of humans from which we evolved?
I am at this point in time, I have come to see that I think we can make a reasonable argument to propose that there was an original human being, Adam, and we are descendants of this one individual.
Okay, well then do me this, because you said earlier that you taught fifth graders. Pretend I'm a fifth grader, because when it comes to this topic, I pretty much am. Maybe in true Thomistic fashion, why don't you give us the strongest argument that's put forth by scientists who tell us that humanity, developed and evolved from communities, and then show why we can still hold to an original Adam. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I'm talking to my fifth grade class. I'd say, look, about 120,000 years ago, there were communities of human-like individuals. In that community, a single person acquired the biological capacity for language. And when that individual living within a community acquired the ability for language, he acquired the ability to think like we think today. And so when we think about who we are as human beings, different from the other animals in the world, we say that the primary difference between us and the dogs, the cats, and the kangaroos is that we are able to think in a way that they cannot think. And that is to think about ideas that and concepts. And in the fifth grade, I had to teach the concept of half, a fraction. And that's very hard to teach because there's no such thing as a half in itself. Half is a concept that you have to understand in relation to a whole. And so these abstract concepts are things that dogs, cats, and kangaroos can't think about. They can think about eagles. They can think about, hunger, but they can't think about half or love. They can't think about unjust behavior. They can react to apparent unfair exchange, but they can't think about it. And so I'd say, and I'll tell my class, look, 100,000 years ago, amongst these 10,000 or so humans, one of the humans became a human person. And that human person had the ability for language. And since all of us have that ability for language, we know that we had to inherit it from that person. So we inherited it from that single human being. That single human being is Adam, and we're all descended from Adam.
Is this the point about language have to do with the immaterial, not just immaterial, but the soul which can think abstractly?
Yeah. So what I would say there is that in this population of 10,000 of our ancestors, one of them acquired a mutation that, and I'm going to use philosophical Thomistic language here, the mutation altered his matter so it was apt to receive a rational soul. And so he became the first human to have a rational soul. And that rational soul enabled him to think in a way that the human-like individuals around him could not. And so he was a person when those around him were not. And so his descendants, those of us who can speak, are rational in our persons, which is why we know we're all descended from him. And we do not know of a single human being who is not capable of language. And one of the things that's striking is that there is a consensus that all human language share architectural features that suggest that they're descended from one language,
really?
The language of Adam, basically. So this is why I point out that if we look at language as a sign of our rationality, and the best language scientists propose that language appeared in a single person, then that single person, properly speaking, is Adam.
So where did Eve come along?
We don't know about that.
Okay. So what's your theory, though? I mean, you've got to have a theory to put this together.
There are many. I mean,
I got a dozen.
Biologically, you could talk about how this Adam mated with a human-like individual who could not speak to him, but who still looked like him, but who was everything like us except for the capacity of rational thought and hierarchical language, and that their children, half of whom carried his genes and half of whom carried hers. And so half of them could speak, half of them could not. And so his children the ones who could speak would then mate with each other, and their children would be speaking. And so what would happen is you'd have a population of speaking individuals next to a population of individuals who could not speak. And the speaking individuals would have an advantage over the non-speakers. And so over time, what would happen is they would have more kids over the non-speakers. And what you have today is basically all of their descendants.
What's the basic argument that says that language shares characteristics that